first time Darius Robinson practiced like on the field with his teammates since early October. And we knew what happened then. He had, one practice and was done for a while. He's back, and by all accounts, feeling good. At least he looked good, Bo Brock.
Let's hear actually from Jonathan Gannon real quick. I thought it was interesting. Goes into Darius Robinson and, how he's been kind of on the shelf since before the start of the regular season with that calf injury.
He's had a tough road, you know what I mean? He had a tough injury, and he's working his tail off to get back out there. He wants to get back out there. He had a good week last week. Returned to play. All those people did a good job with him. So we'll take it one day at a time.
I mean, we can all kind of read the tea leaves here, and this is what this show can tell you. Like, Darius practiced in early October with his injury, and then it didn't respond well. And so he's been working his way back. I mean, I don't know if you want to call that a re-injury or just potentially needing more time. But, between that and the tragic death of his mother, it was a very, very difficult, probably the most difficult fall he's ever had. And then you couple that with the fact he's never been injured, was consistently healthy at Missouri, and now he's coming back. It's like, today, I don't want to undersell it. Today's a big step for him, regardless of whether he plays this weekend or what the timeline looks like getting him back out there with his teammates. I mean, I'm sure he'll tell you there's no place he'd rather be right now is to just kind of be back in the routine. Because when we spoke with him at the Super Bowl last year, when he came, he was available, we brought him onto our show. He is one of the most schedule-oriented people I have ever met in my life. Talking about his regiment, how it revolves around football, faith, and family, constantly around the clock. This isn't a guy sitting around with his feet up. So I'm sure when that was removed and that structure that he's always known was taken away from him, I can't imagine the damage that was done. So just getting him back with his teammates is really nice to see that footage, Bo.
Yeah, and take what I'm going to say relative to the conversation about the game of football. But the two main constants in his life were taken away from him.
Yeah.
One more tragic, way more tragically than the other. And it's, when you make your transition from, the collegiate world to the professional world, and we just can all, from our own experience, remember that and how sometimes that can be a tough transition. And then you take that and you face the most adversity you've ever faced before, potentially. I mean, it's a tough recipe. And, I think that, this is Gannon really acknowledging that. Like it's been a tough road for him. And I think that, him getting back to a comfort place for him, and that's just back on the practice field, something that that's his safe place. It's only going to, help him, I think, get back, get himself in a position where he's going to start to feel better, overall. I'm sure it's going to put him in a position to hopefully, heal a little bit. And, the Arizona Cardinals can be the beneficiary from him in adding him to this defensive front whenever it may be. Now, that's going to be, I think, the question going forward. This is a step in the right direction. This is a great sign. But the guy realistically hasn't been on a football field consistently since before the regular season. The final, week before the regular season, he went down, and he hasn't been out there consistently enough. And to play in such a grueling position like he does on the defensive front, where it's so physical, getting in football shape is so important for him.
Well, I also just feel like the Cardinals should be able to win this game Sunday without Darius Robinson. Frankly, they're coming off a bye. Their defensive line looked good against the Jets and the Bears, right? Like, try to string together another strong performance and get him back maybe for Minnesota. I think is realistic. Like I mean, who knows? He was, limited today out there with his teammates, but to your point, football shape, getting that, ramping him up, same thing that they've been doing with Jonah Williams the last couple of weeks, like just continue to be smart, and they will be, but they ought to be able. I know Kenneth Walker's a really good player, but between Dante Stills and LJ Collier and company and Roy Lopez and the way the Cardinals linebackers have been filling, like you ought to be able to do enough damage. And I just, right now, you and I have talked about this off air. I think the two keys to the rest of the season in a kind of a unique way are the production of the 2 first-round picks. Like if Marvin takes his game up a level the second half of this year, and I expect him to, especially with the quality of some of the opponents defensively aren't being great, And if you just get a little bit from Darius Robinson, 3.5 sacks, maybe if he participates, he's filling tackle for loss. I don't think it's hyperbole to say like Marvin and Darius could project or vault you to the NFC West. I'm not saying that they can't win it without those players providing that kind of impact. But I mean, you look at it, Kyler Murray's got to stay hot and he needs his weapons to produce, Marv and Trey McBride and company. And then defensively, like we have, I think, a lot of answers on the back seven. There's still some questions up front.
Yeah. Look, I mean, this is going to be perceived as a polarizing take because of who was drafted in front of them. But there are people within the organization that believe, Johnny, and you have this source, that Darius Robinson is the biggest impact maker of the 2024 draft class.
He was before he got hurt. He was the best rookie at training camp. I mean, we reported that. Anybody could see that with their eyes. Like, and Marvin was great. But Darius ran around. He looked like Superman out there. He looked like the Hulk.
And that was the thing today. It was just to see him on the field. Now, the first time that he returned to practice and then experienced the discomfort, and we haven't seen him since until today, he was a little bit more kind of behind the scenes, standing with the defensive line coach, looking on as other people played, participated in drills. Do we have the footage now, Damon? Let's take a look at Darius Robinson back out there on the Cards practice field. This is him just getting warm in the Cardinals bubble at their Tempe facility. Just already, walking off the bus type player as he stands there with the other defensive lineman. Then here's hitting the sled.
It's a good rep there.
Getting off that. Yeah. This was actually a better rep. He went back and did that one. And then a little false start there. It's okay. Getting back into it. And then it's a bad day to be one of those inflatables right there.
Tackling bag.
Another one. But he looks like he's spry. He doesn't look like he's limited at all. Doesn't even have his calf, wrapped or covered or anything.
When you sent me that, that looks way better than what I thought he'd be doing. Because you remember, before the bye, I mean, he wasn't doing anything. I mean, he was working to get back. I don't want to discredit his effort, but it's gone from 0 to 100, I think, pretty fast. And that's promising. And this guy hasn't forgotten how to play football. This guy was one of the best defensive players in the SEC last year, and it carried over. And I think that's why our confidence has never wavered, because I think one of the biggest question marks you always ask with rookies is, number one, can they play, right? Can they play at this level? Because sometimes you quickly identify, hey, Andy Isabella, you probably can't play consistently at this level, certainly where you were drafted. With Darius, that's never been a question. He dominated. I'm going to emphasize, he dominated training camp. He was their best defensive lineman in training camp, edge rusher, defensive tackle. He was better than Zaven Collins. He was better than Justin Jones. He was their best, most explosive defensive lineman. So when that's removed from the equation now, and he has to get healthy, it's I'm not going to sit here and say I don't know what he's going to look like on Sunday. If he's healthy, he will help this team. Unobjectively so. He will go out there and produce and be behind the line of scrimmage. And again, could it start this week? What do you need to see? What do the Cardinals need to see for him to be able to play this week? Or you think there's no shot?
No, I think I really do think it's a long shot. Don't you? I mean, he hasn't consistently practiced for a very, very long time. And I know it's the defensive line, it's not, rocket science, but this is an NFL system, what they're running up front. And, for him to get they get the bonus practice. Maybe that helps him a little bit. They're off tomorrow and then they're back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday before hitting the road and flying to Seattle and taking on the Seahawks. So, he has the potential to get, 4 practices under his belt this week, but wouldn't it put him in a really good situation if, you just take this week as, hey, you're getting up, get your sea legs, and then next thing you know, whenever they play the Vikings, that's when you're going to make your debut in week 13.
I think you ought to be able, again, coming off a bye, to do enough to rattle Geno Smith and stymie this offense. The Cardinals' run defense, save for at Miami, the game we were at, where they still won, has looked really good. Can it translate on the roads? Seattle's a tough place to play, and their crowd's going to be juiced after last week, but Cardinals are a better team they have the better quarterback. They have the better head coach. They ought to win this game. And again, can you get Darius to Minnesota and get him ready? Will that game in Minnesota be flexed to Monday Night Football? We anxiously await that